Back here at Mount Panorama Bathurst, as the IFWL kicks off a new era for round number 1 of the Console Pro-Am Series. Jackson Lambros with you back in the booth here at Bathurst as we kick off this brand new season of Pro-Am racing. A lot of new faces in the PlayStation and Xbox side of things, and a lot of new ones. Here's a returning one, Mad Max CGN, with a good delta as he works that Flamingo Ferrari, that very familiar colored 296 GT3, up towards Cutter's Corner. The cutting, excuse me, in camber, very, very satisfying when you get it right, when you get this entire mountain section right. So not only has the rain decided to continue here since Wednesday night, but we've added in some nighttime conditions just for that little extra bit of drama. Split stream tonight, by the way, if you are interested in catching our PC race. That will be over on the IFWL Twitch. And all console races for the Pro-Am Series will be right here on IFWL's YouTube. Adam Ty working the PC side of things, just like he did with the Beginner Series. As we're getting things kicked off, got some hot, juicy info off the press for you about Super Touring Power 3 here at Brands Hatch in a couple weeks' time. Last weekend of June. And IFWL is helping you guys get tickets. Raffle in our Discord server. Winner will get full weekend entry to catch some retro/vintage British touring car action at one of the jewel boxes of British Motorsports. £5 sterling to enter, and you can find more info at our Discord server below. I need to check airfares here to Brands Hatch to see if I can catch that. I feel like it wouldn't be too expensive from California, although I reckon Ryanair doesn't do any flights from LAX, do they? 6.5 minutes to go here in happy hour practice. It's Janus, another new face in the Mustang in first, and the McLaren of Mel at the top as we watch another very, very familiar name from the Beginner Series, Loxa 26. Trying to copy that little bit of magic he's had all season long just a couple weeks ago. Back up towards the cutting. I'm trying to find a good analogy here for how different this track can be when you put the lights on and have to run it at night. As he goes a little bit wide, he'll sail off into the wall and have front end damage now. But some points, some reference points for turn-in braking, getting back on the gas, a lot of that is far more difficult for you to see at night. Shouldn't be too much of a shocker when I say that, but you're doing a lot more off of feel as Antonio now sails off going towards McPhillamy. Can get very, very loose there at the top of the corner, and just feeling that little bit of curbing on the outside. It's not the fact that you're necessarily touching it if you run just that little bit too wide on the curbing and get into the sand, or if you kind of start on the sand and then ramp up into the curbing, that car's going to pivot around almost immediately. One of the most knife-edge corners in all of Assetto Corsa Competizione. Let's ride the roller coaster here with Matt Psycho in a new Ferrari 296. Down Mountain Straight once again, using that access road to the left as our brake marker for Griffin's Bend. There it is. Can run very, very wide here, but with the wet conditions, you got to be so careful. Can run all the way to that New South Wales sign up towards the cutting. Lift at the kink, then hard on the brakes. Try and get as close to that outie wall on the inside as possible. Use all of that curbing to your advantage, all of that angle in the road to your advantage. Working through Quarry Corner, have to be so careful here not to hit the wall. Street circuit, concrete canyon kind of stuff as we work through Frog Hollow, up and over the hill through Solomon Park and through to McPhillamy. Down Skyline. Coasting and just tapping the brakes down here, not giving it any gas. Through the S's and onto the Dipper. Again, just all about carrying as much speed as possible, keeping that car as straight as possible. Force elbow. Running a little bit more shallow than I would think he would want to. Trying to get back on the gas immediately as we head back downhill down Conrad Straight. And towards the Chase chicane after this Pirelli sign, going to be a little bit of extra concrete on the left, or you can use that to set up for the turn. There it is. Not brave enough to take it, though, as hard on the brakes. Uphill and in camber means that curbing on the inside of the 21st corner comes quick. Through the Lipamali Bridge into Murray's Corner, final turn. It is a pair of 90-degree left-handers that both start and end our lap here at Mount Panorama. 212 for Matt Psycho. Low 212. We're able to get in the 210s in these conditions. Absolutely. Would it be dry? Getting below 2 minutes. Not impossible. Certainly not easy as well. That's good stuff. Big slide there. What were we talking about being so careful running wide at Griffin's Bend? Thank goodness for that state-of-the-art TC on that Ferrari to keep everything in order. Big Formula Drift angle there for Matt Psycho as Mad Max goes into the wall. Would like to remind you that we are also implementing, as we're watching Black Metaphor run a little bit wide into the chase, running a brand new increasing set of penalties and set of difficulty in terms of rules and regulations here as BM will take that Ford Mustang back onto pit row. First two races lenient on rules and penalties, only one pit stop. Then from 3 and 4 onwards, you're gonna have to do 2 pit stops. Some things that you might be able to just be issued off with a warning are going to be more severe. Trying to differentiate how we run Pro-Am and how we would do it with the beginners. Another new face in a McLaren Haka Slade. Getting right on that curbing coming out of Solomon Park. Have to be so careful. See how he's not even close to that curbing through McPhillamy. Gets a big chunk of it. Will sail into the wall. Gets airtime into Skyline. This is an area you've got to respect. Because again, if you get caught out, there is no such thing as a single car incident. We saw it in the closing laps of the beginner series, catching up some guys searching for podium, searching for top 5s. So just things you need to look out for, be so careful about. Also noticing a couple more people playing it safe in terms of practicing pit-ins and pit-outs, which you love to see. Ten-minute qualifying underway now. And looking at the math here, that should get you roughly, counting the out lap, assuming you don't come back to pit row, about 3 good laps. Gonna take you at least a minute and a half to go from standing in your box to going across the stripe for your first flyer. Good job from Loxa, by the way, being the first guy out. Doesn't have to deal with the rooster tails or the spray from the cars behind, like Mel just behind him has to. As we are getting set, would like to remind you guys that gold tier supporters of the IFWL Patreon receive unmatched perks, including ACC car setups, the exclusive IFWL fuel calculator, early access to custom liveries, participation in race planning, and more. It is the ultimate way to support IFWL and enhance your racing experience. Get half off of your first month using the promo code JacksonL. That's JackSonL. Loxa into the chase in that Porsche 992 GT3R. Mel now backing out just a little bit, wants to be able to actually see his references. So our first flying lap here on the way from the Beginner Series champion Loxa 2.6, the Flying Frenchman. Let's ride him. Be some lap traffic in front here. I believe that's Americo in the NSX. It's one of the Aston Martins, actually. Sail through and get right back in line. Runs a little bit wide and just taps the curbing there coming out of the first big corner after the straight up the cutting. Tiptoe back on the gas. You can watch the wheel of Loxa right now and just see how knife's edge this Porsche is in these conditions. To keep the car straight at this track in one condition, in these conditions, is one thing. To be able to maximize the car, maximize the pace at the top of this hill is completely something else. 110% levels of focus from Loxa. Back onto Conrad. Already to the very left of this track. He's getting set up for the chase. Let's see if he gets this little extra strip of concrete on the left. Nearly on the grass. He does take it. That's the line we've been looking for, even though it can get so bumpy on the outsides of this track. Always a little bit scared at the top of, at that apex on the inside. The first left-hander, the car gets so light and you're almost anticipating that opposite lock, that counter steer. And Loxa predicted it perfectly and was able to catch it. Back to the bottom of the hill and across the line. It's a low 210 from a driver we know can get in the 208s in these conditions in this car. And already a quarter second up. Mel in that McLaren, though, already responding. As he's done a low 209, a whole second and change up from Loxa. Good stuff from the McLaren pilot. Mad Max in the Ferrari, 4th quickest provisionally. Mel has to deal with a little bit of lap traffic. Tommy Kart lets him go by, though. But damage is still done now with 2/10 up from his last lap. Everyone going to have about 1 lap after this one, with 4.5 minutes on the clock here in round 1 qualifying. Chris Harris not even out of the pits yet. Now Janus to the line with a 2:09.8, will also leapfrog Loksa in the process. Loksa back down. Conrad fast enough right now to get back into 2nd. Needs another half, though, to stand on the pole. This is good enough for front row right now. Back down into the chase. How deep does he run it? A little bit shallower, but again, the tail end. That flat 6 just wants to pivot that car around the minute it gets loose. And Loksa has been handling this 992, the lone Porsche, in the field to perfection. Now 3/4 up on his last lap. Nipping on the front row. It's a 2:09.457. We'll go back into the pit lane. We'll have chance for one more. Will be interesting to see what he does. Akaslade 2:10.4, so absolutely in this conversation. This lap will not see him do any progress forward. Half a second up. Mel's lap invalidated at the top of the hill, so he'll have to do his final lap to try and defend that provisional pole. Black Metaphor comes out right in front of Manny. Manny's not happy. You can see him flashing those high beams to say, don't be a problem to me. This is going to be my last flyer. Get out of my way, dude. He responds and lets Manny sail on through. Mad Max a second up. The minute you're in those 2:10s, you are in conversation for a top 5, top 3 start immediately. Just a matter of how brave you are. Courage in your car, or faith in your car, is one thing. But it's like qualifying at Indianapolis. You just got to put a little bit extra on the line. Two minutes to go in qualifying. Now it is Janus on the pole. First time we've seen a Ferrari 488 on pole for the consoles in 2025. Big lick for Antonio. That lap will be done. Maisco maybe getting caught up. No. Good job from that BMW holding the brakes and minimizing the drama there. Working down the S's. Tommy Kart will not improve here coming out of the hill. Mel, this will be his final chance to swipe back at the pole. As I'm trying to find that magic number from Janus. It's a 2:07. Unreal. And his return to pit lane is telling me he does not have it in him again. It is going to take 2 seconds of delta from Loksa and maybe another second here from Mel, Mad Max, and others to try for this. This is going to be a tough one. Not looking good for Loksa currently. Just up, has been up and down with what he's had as the checkered flag flies. Now, for the first round of qualifying. Mel's got heat in his lap, but I think this one is invalidated. The red numbering is telling me it's possible, but there might have been a brush against the wall or maybe too big of a chunk in one of the corners we haven't seen. This would be certainly good enough for second, maybe first. Tiptoeing on the throttle out of Murray's. Good enough for second, 2:08.010. Close to pole, but no cigar. Still a great maiden qualifying here for Mel. Loxa now down to the bottom of the hill. Does not have the pace. As he's now looking at fifth. So a lot of guys now below the 210s. Matt Psycho being one of them. Same with Manny. We have not seen at all so far. Big mistake we missed there from Loxa. That will be all she wrote for the Porsche. And Mariko now working that Honda NSX into the chase. New car for him as he was in the McLaren in the beginner series. I heard good things about this car in the rain. This could be big time improvements. He's on pace for a 211. He's trying to launch himself into the heart of this field across the line. Good enough for 12th, so 2 positions gained, but not the result he wanted. Marco Gallego bumps Loxa at the last minute, so it will be Janus and Mel on the front row, and our defending beginner champion rolls off from 6th. When we get back, 40 minutes of Bathurst in the wet once again here when we kick off the Pro-Am series for the console guys right here on IFWL. Stay with us. Huge thanks to all of our partners here at IFWL, Fanatec, Moza Racing, Abruzzi Racewear, CD Keys, Positive Perception Graphic Design, and G-Portal. All affiliate links can be found here in the YouTube description as well as on our YouTube. 15 cars on the docket for round number 1 as engines are now firing for round 1. Janus on pole for the maiden round. He'll start alongside Mel 2-3. Manuel 98 and Matt Skylo in row number 2. And then it's Gaglio in the Huracan on the inside of Loxa 2-6 for row number 3. So some new faces mixed in with some returning ones as we are ready here for an all-wet 40-minute race here. One pit stop required to take both fuel and gas here in round number 1. Starting where we left off here at Bathurst, who is going to take round number 1? Let's find out. Let's go racing at Bathurst. Green flag flies, and Mel holds off. Janus to the inside in that McLaren. Mel still with the line. Around goes Manny. Manny goes around further behind, and the M4 gets straightened out. And now Loxa and others are going to sail right on through as a little bit of carnage. But that BMW M4 gets straightened out. Mel 23 with a good run on Janus. We'll look to the outside here, heading into Murray's Corner. Brakes at the access road right on that paint on the outside going into turn number 3. And we'll stay in line as this battle for the lead continues going up the hill. Further back, Octaslade and others, everybody keeping it peachy clean through the opening set of corners as we head up into the mountain for the first time. Marco Gaglio holding off Loxa, who gained 4 positions during that start. And Manny, your biggest loser, as he goes from 3rd to 7th. So Janus, Mel, and Gaglio, your provisional podium. And despite that little straighten out in the opening set of corners, that's been your drama so far through the opening lap. Very, very clean for our 15 drivers thus far. Down Skyline for the first time following this very, very close freight train. First and second already breaking off in a league of their own. First big overtaking opportunity coming up as Christian Viero did get started. Chris Harris didn't even set a lap for qualifying. I believe he is AFK. We will have to see. Watching from the rear wing of Janus as Mel 23 continues to hunt that Ferrari down. Open race number 1. Yellow flag further back, and it will be Chris Harris, I believe, acting as a rolling roadblock here as he works that Mustang out onto the back straightaway. It's one of the BMWs, actually, that got collected. As here's Christian Viero. It's one of our 14th place cars, so one car confirmed to be lost. Big bunch up here on the tail end of the field. Matt Psycho, who started in the 3rd row, losing a couple of positions as well. Uncle Slade and Tommy Cart. Tommy Cart in that lone Aston Martin Vantage, giving chase here to get into the top 10. As the front two once again bunching up here as we ride on board with Mel. McLaren 720S Evo versus the 296. A dual combination we have seen in pretty much every ACC race we've broadcasted, whether it's the beginners or the Pro-Ams console or PC. Two of the meta cars I use with massive air quotes. As Janus does a great job in those wet conditions to peel away in that 296. Could be some overtaking opportunities up ahead. Psycho, excuse me, getting the power down and overtake Metaphor in that Mustang. That Mustang's got the straight line speed. Ford versus Ferrari heading into the chase. Well, Metaphor stays in. Alcaslade goes very, very deep, gathers it back up in that McLaren at the tail end of this three-car pack. As we complete lap number 2, Mel still giving chase to Janus for the lead. How about this young man right here, Black Metaphor, who wowed us so much in the beginner finale, who was anxious to see if he was even worthy of running in Pro-Ams. He's absolutely proven to us that yes is the answer. Though I'm sure he maybe was hoping for a little bit more cool running here at this point in the race. A lot of position traffic here. Manny still on the blinker here, trying to work his way back to row number 3. Almost gets into the bumper of Mad Max. That's Antonio in that BMW just up the road. Let's ride on board with this BMW M4. Mad Max did not have the finish to the beginner series he was wanting, almost running better right now than he was with the rookies. Back down Skyline. And again, with the advanced ABS and the brake migration system that 296 has, loose conditions and long braking zones will be the advantage here as we've got trouble somewhere. Ooh, big contact there. Hawk to Slade, and I believe that's Tommy Kart that's still around further back. Couple of cars not completely hemorrhaged, but definitely some blockage going down Skyline. So a couple cars collected as a result. We'll try and get more info from you as the time goes on. Finish of lap number 3. Loxa continuing to reel in Gaglio, excuse me. And Mel continuing to put the pressure on Janus. Good stuff so far from all of our drivers. As Manny continuing to roll in. Keep saying rolling, continuing to reel in this battle. As now here comes Ant. But Mad Max has that extra little bit of momentum on the outside. This is going to be a tough move to make. And Antonio holds on to the inside, but goes a little bit wide. A little bit of a wiggle into turn number 3. And now once again, momentum goes to Mad Max, but this is a tough place to overtake. And now Manny going to look for a way around through the cutting. A little bit of a snap there from Mad Max, but he gathers it back up in that 488. Back up to the front of the field. Loxa has gotten around Marco Gaglio, and that Porsche is once again back in the podium spot. Good stuff from the Flying Frenchman in that Porsche 992. Up ahead at the front of the field, though. If I can cycle to it. This battle just getting started as well. Janus almost in the grass, serpentining from the inside to the outside to try and break that toe that Mel has. The Ferrari gets away at the start, but definitely closes in going into the chase. Big dive, lot of confidence on the brakes, and is able to roll that momentum out and stay right at the bumper. Big wiggle from Mel, but gathers it back up. Stop go 30 for Matt Psycho. He tried to take his stop early after being involved with the Aston and go in for repair. So first stop go 30 we've given out so far this year. Hopefully the only one. So Janus still holding off Mel. Tommy resuming despite the damage to him. And now Gaglio will try to hunt down Loxa despite the Huracan historically having the straight line speed advantage, so we will see. Did also mention, very interesting the way that this was actually given, because normally we would give the pole sitter the inside, but it was indeed Mel who was on the outside. Actually, the more I think about that, it was Janus who stole the show at the very last minute. Mel in the wall will slowly slide. Big time damage for the McLaren, and that might knock the fight off. Asking for just that little bit too much. Will certainly be aero damage to that McLaren. Ooh, a lot of oversteer there. But holding that wheel straight still. I was thinking there would maybe be a bent toe arm or something else on that McLaren. But Mel just overdriving the car, trying to hunt down that leader. And he will come to pit row almost immediately. Ooh, more contact here. Christian Vieru into Americo, who just mashes on the gas to try and clear any carnage there. Christian Vieru is still slow to get going as well. We shall see what ends up being the result of that. For sure a discussion post-race. As Mad Max now hunting down Manny once again. Only 10 minutes and 5 laps in here from round 1 of the Pro-Ams at Bathurst. Mel does indeed come into the pit lane. So clearly something noticeably wrong with that McLaren, rightfully so, as that was a big lick going into McPhillamy. Good run from Mad Max here as he looks to the outside, heading down the front straightaway. Down the hill. We'll try it on the outside. Into Corey corner as now Manny goes wide and goes into the wall. Rejoining the track, it's going to be major damage to that BMW M4. Still not giving up this fight. Now Mad Max goes into the wall, trying to stick it around the outside. That's not a place where too wide can work. And as a result, big battle damage to both of these guys. This will give Black Metaphor an opportunity to rejoin the battle, as I would not be surprised to see both of these cars come into pit row at the end of this lap. Manny holding on to 5th for the time being, but we shall see who got the worst of that confrontation soon. You can still see the results of the upset suspension here. Manny with a big wiggle getting back on the gas here. We'll see if he does it again, coming back onto Conrad. Keeps it steady this time. Just a matter of both of these guys getting a little bit too over-ambitious. Mad Max having the pace, but tried on the outside in a corner that wasn't necessarily going to stick. Manny maybe giving up too much of a fight to defend, and then Mad Max doing the exact same when he was on defense. One car goes very wide here going into the chase. I believe it is Mad Max. It's Antonio. So the two BMWs come back together. Now, Manny's going to stay out, and so will Mad Max. So damage not bad enough to justify that pit lane trip, is now a lot of takers. Vieru, Americo, Chris Harris, and Psycho all coming in. Psycho in to serve that stop go 30. So now a 3-car battle for the top 5. as Manuel pounces on a mistake from Ant to take P4. That mistake from Mel, by the way, has another big wiggle there further back from Antonio. Exact same place we saw these two get into it just a couple of corners ago. Is now Manny scrapes the wall going into the cutting yet again, forces Ant to do exactly the same. As these guys asking for maybe a little bit too much from their machinery. As the fall off on these Pirelli wet compounds may be starting to become noticeable. Another lick to the wall from Antonio. Notice how Mad Max is just learning from these mistakes, just sitting in the mirrors and occupying them, waiting for something a little bit overambitious to happen from one of these BMWs. Just staying there, letting the mistakes come to them. Another bit of a lick from the wall there from Ant. Surely this will be the time we see this BMW come into pit row. Max with another good run. Now looks to the outside, trying to maybe sell a move, but Ant isn't buying it. See if he does in a chase here. Again, these long braking zones where we see mistakes like this happen. Antonio going off in chase for the second lap in a row, but stays out, so loses 2 positions in 2 laps, all in the exact same corner. As further back, Black Metaphor, who wasn't even involved in this battle, will now go in for fuel and some fresh shoes. Mel, by the way, still in the pits. That's almost indicating to me that the McLaren driver has thrown in the towel. As Metaphor continues to finish his stop. So Janus in a league of his own. Purple lap for him as well, running a low 209, 209.077. But you can see the drop-off on these Pirellis, nearly 2 laps off. Another drive-through. This time it is for the 68. As I believe that is Metaphor. No, it's not. The 824 just now getting that dark horse out of pit lane. Trying to figure out who that was. Hunt is on still for Mad Max, who sets radar lock on Manny. Down for Selbo. All of these guys with a little bit of aero damage. And this is where the damage actually works into how you're running this kind of strategy. If you've ran a race at Bathurst and ACC and you maybe clipped the wall, you've got to make that difficult decision. Do I sacrifice those extra 5-10 seconds to try and bend that front bumper rear wing back into place, or do I suck it up and just try dealing with it for the next 20 minutes, especially when more likely than not you're just going to get that exact same damage again in a couple laps time? Could be very interesting. And again, we know how hard it is to overtake, especially at the top of the hill. So do not be surprised if we see guys treating it like there's no damage on these cars at all. So often have we seen Loxa put up 13-second gaps on the field. He's on the receiving end of that now. as he's got to deal with the lap traffic of Americo just ahead of him. That NSX will go wide. I'm really hoping that thing doesn't ping-pong out onto the field. I think it's okay. I hope it's okay. Here's Marco, who I think did get through with no harm, no foul. But, man, that would be a total code brown for the Huracan driver. Getting to the end of the line with the Huracan in real life. The diminishing era of the V10s in GT3, unfortunately. Audi dropping their customer support for the R8 LMS, as they are focusing now full sail on Formula 1. While the Huracan Evo will still have homologation eligibility for the coming years, Lambo has been cooking up the Temamario GT3 over the past couple of years. Although that obviously drops the V10 for a turbocharged V8 in real life. Drop the hybrid system from the road car or the race car variant. And while I'm sure it will still be a phenomenal sounding car nonetheless, if you've heard the R8 or Huracan GT3 in real life, you know just how special of a soundtrack that is. Big wiggle from Hockeslade as well here. That McLaren absolutely in an island. 15 seconds up from the leader of Loxa, but 30 seconds back from Black Metaphor. Through the halfway point here at Bathurst, would like to thank all of you for sticking with us as Hockeslade gets into the wall once again. And for those of you tuning in, I'm going to do the whole YouTube spiel, because liking, commenting, subscribing, I know we don't have live chat on, but liking and subscribing truly does help us go great distances here, as IFWL continues to pass some really big landmarks in terms of viewer base and participation base. Discord server just passing 1,000 active members a couple of weeks ago. Janus, the first of the leaders to come to pit row. He cycles out in fourth, 15 seconds back from Manny, 40 seconds back from Loxa. And that will be relatively close, as it'll be about 30 seconds in the pit row for him, or in the box for him. Mine with about a 10-second pit in, pit out, I would argue. That could be closer than we think. Mad Max in sixth as well. There's still some guys from his battles that needed to cycle through as well. Being chased right now from Matt Psycho, who is absolutely having a race to forget, was showing very strong pace in qualifying, but dropped back, was involved in a couple of incidents. So race leader for the greater half of this race comes across the stripe. And there is Loxa Antonio, the last leader to have not come to the pit row yet. Where these guys are going to blend out, though, will be very interesting. Black Metaphor gaining a position as well. Leapfrogs Tommy Kart in the pit lane. Tell you what, where these guys will come out to will be very, very important. Flash of the headlights there to warn Americo, as he might be a little bit of a roadblock as well. Guys starting to merge out of pit row. Back into turn one. Mad Max is out. Americo is now out. but another position gained now as Black Metaphor outstrats Manny. Manny, I believe, taking a little bit of extra time as well to take care of any damage he has taken on the mountain. So 11 seconds now separate first and second provisionally after Antonio brings that Beamer to pit lane. Gaglio about 7 seconds, 6 seconds back after that. So still plenty of battles to be had here with 15 minutes, 30 seconds on the clock. We shall see. Black Metaphor has wowed us, as we've previously mentioned. One of the best clips we've gotten this year so far, with a phenomenal pass in the run down to the S's here. He's played it smart, done a lot of stuff off track, has not made a lot of mistakes. So just trying to play the smart game, doing a lot of things off track to get it done this time by, and it's paid off big time. Lone Aston of Tommy Kart, 40 whole seconds behind, and Manny does emerge in P9, I believe. Still in pit lane. So whether that is very heavy damage or serving the... or maybe throwing in the towel like we saw with Mel earlier on, we will have to see. If you're an Aussie, you know why this place is special. Home of their Daytona or Indianapolis 500. Their Le Mans, their Monaco Grand Prix, their one ginormous, insanely special motorsport event, the Bathurst 1000. The SRO, the GT World Challenge license, came, and why we're able to race here, came from end of a long line of dominoes. The first one being some weird TV network rights that essentially forced two Bathurst 1000s to happen in the 80s. One for the fans and one for TV. And some of the die-hard V8s fans would be thinking, oh, heck yeah, two cakes. Like, we get two Bathurst 1000s in 1 year. Entry lists were so insanely different. Sanctioning bodies were different. It was... I think for all of the Bathurst 1000 fans and all of the open-wheel racing fans in America would maybe be scared that it would be a similar shade to the kart IRL split that we saw late 80s, early 90s, in which IndyCar is still putting the pieces back together, even almost now 20 years since that merger. Hard for me to say that. But I believe it was Channel 8 in Australia that got exclusive rights to a marquee motor race in Bathurst. And what that ultimately became was a more production-based event. Again, it was... Australian touring cars were always more tending towards production-based cars, but just like how NASCAR started with completely stock road cars, that's the S in NASCAR, by the way. Those cars became less and less resemblant of what you would see in your showroom a couple blocks away. So the answer was a production-based endurance car race. And it took a lot of different forms over the years. For a long time, it was true production cars, for one thing. TCR cars, and others would come in. And then race distance, it was originally another 1,000-kilometer race, then went on to a 24-hour race for several years. I believe it was a 6-hour as well, before they ultimately settled on the 12-hour race. It wasn't until the turn of the century that they decided on a couple of things. One, the timing. Not only would it be easier for an international audience to watch if they started at the butt crack of dawn and ended in the afternoon, but no other 12-hour or part-day endurance race runs part-time and starts at the beginning of the day and ends in the middle of it. So always been a sunrise start since then for the Bathurst 12 hours. Adopted GT3s as well in the middle of the aughts. And GT World Licensing came after that. It became an officially recognized SRO event and is now, to this day, an active part of the Intercontinental GT Challenge. Some of the biggest endurance races in the world. Also why we have Kailami, Suzuka, and Laguna Seca on the calendar. I think most importantly why we have the Nürburgring 24-hour format, as last year was announced that the SRO would get rights to that as well. Matt Psycho getting a really big lick out of the wall there. More drama for the Ferrari pilot. Loxa, we were hoping could be able to reel in Janus. Has not really been able to do so, but further back, Gaglio still holding that Porsche relatively at bay. 3 seconds and change. Last cool little history tidbit. This is one of the, I believe this is the only street circuit in Assetto Corsa Competizione. I use that with a very large asterisk, as it's a street circuit the same way Sochi was for Formula One, or let me think. I mean, Monaco is that's a true street circuit, but Sochi is a great example. I would say Miami, saying that Miami is a street circuit, right? A lot of this is purpose-built for motor racing, but a lot of this truly is public roads for a vast, vast majority of the year. So not a true copy and paste like your Long Beaches, Monaco's, Belle Isle Parks. Do I put Singapore in that list? I'll put Singapore in that list for sure. Monaco. They're not quite there, but absolutely deserving of that. Only track that might be a part of someone's commute. Absolutely. Good gainage from Janus there as he goes from 16 to nearly 20 seconds in one lap. As Gaglio continues to try and chip away for second. Not a lot of close activity on track at this point in the race. It took us 30 minutes to get here, but the field has very heavily diluted, especially at the front end. Battle for second could slowly be brewing here as Gaglio in this Huracan slowly but surely reels in the Frenchman Loxa. Rain is where we do see the newer cars tend to have a little bit of an advantage over our more older based, like the Evo's a great example here that we're on board with, has had 2 upgrade packages given to it over the past half decade. just because you have such a fresh suite of electronics. Excuse me, fresh sweat. But auto-migrating brake system, where the bias changes not only corner by corner, but can actively migrate or change over the course of a braking zone. You want to talk about the certain advantages that has in any conditions, but you up that massively when it comes to loose conditions. Especially when you have such different levels of braking zones here at the mountain. So Janus with a major trick up his sleeve here. And why, just one of the few reasons why he's been able to hold off Gaglio and Loxa. I am still just a little bit disappointed that Mel didn't come back out, because that would have been a brilliant comeback drive. Even with the major damage to that car, I'm not sure it was a total write-off. I get that frustration, right? But we could get to this point now where we're talking championship picture a couple weeks from now. And Mel's on a roll with a couple of wins, and just that little bit extra from even seeing the checkered flag could help massively. Just under 5 minutes to go here at Mountain Panorama. This will be about 3 to go lap-wise for Janus. Loxa in second. Still a little bit of riding here before we wrap up the first round. Marco Gaglio was within 2 seconds. Got a little bit wide there going out of Force Elbow, and has nearly doubled that gap now. And the commentator's curse continues. Still plenty of IFWL action over the next couple of weeks. Go to VRS Series heads to Red Bull Ring this Friday. Beginner GT3s will get their new season started at Spa-Francorchamps. Before the Pro-Ams head to South Africa for round number 2 at Kailami. Same time, same place. I'll be with you every lap of the way here next Sunday. So glad you could be with us here and spending your Sunday afternoon for me, night for so many of you here at Mount Panorama. A little bit of a mistake there for Loxa earlier on in this lap has meant this battle is absolutely back on. Another drive-through penalty given to the 994. That's Ant. And more BMW drama further back. Traditionally, it is the straight line advantage to the Huracan. The way BOPs, not only do they ease the power in for the newer cars, so the Porsche naturally a little bit more stale on power. But the Lambo with the extra 2 cylinders, historically outside of the street circuits, has been phenomenal. Gaglio has 2 more very, very long straightaways to get this done, as Janus and the entire Pro-Am field sees the white flag. We're going to go one more time here in Mount Panorama. Has to be so careful on the curbing there, as that's not just losing time, that's risking a loss of control. Just a second now separating second and third. As we ride on board with the wing. And for Loxa, you've got to imagine that he almost wishes he could just duct tape the mirror on the top of his monitor so he's not even seeing this. He's just all focused on the front of on what's ahead of him. For Gaglio heading down Skyline, it's not about overtaking, it's about staying on the bumper, staying in contention as they head down towards Forrest's elbow, towards Murray. Big spit of flame from the flat six of Loxa, getting back on the loud pedal, coming out of Forrest. It'll be out of drafting range for now, but that extra oomph that Huracan has could still get him in contention. It's going to need a little extra bit of bravery here from Gaglio to make this even a possibility. Heading down the chase. Checkered flag is out. Janus will win round number 1 for Ferrari. And just one more good corner, and Loxa will be runner-up in his first ever Pro-Am start. A great effort from Gaglio, who started on the same row as those two. It won't be enough. Loxa and Gaglio round out your podium, and Mad Max, if I can find him, still with a very long way to go, but absolutely zero pressure from behind. This has been a start this man has been waiting for weeks on end. He'll be kicking himself maybe just a little bit that it wasn't a podium, but the top 5 has finally come for Mad Max. P4 at the season opener here at Bathurst. Further back, Tommy Kart will come home in P5. Still plenty of ways to go, but he will be the last on our lead lap. Christian Viero in 6th, Matt Skyro in 8th. And Mariko will be able to salvage a top 10, as that's all that's left in the server, actually. So again, a level of racing that does not necessarily favor outright pace, but consistency. Mel had the pace, but got too hungry for it and paid the ultimate price. You could argue the same for a lot of the BMWs here. Maybe a lesson that Mad Max has had to take a very, very long time to learn. Checkered flag for Tommy Kart. He gets that lone Aston Martin into P5 for round number 1. And that will be all she wrote for our opening round for Console Pro-Am. Was a really, really good race there up until the end. And then things started to dilate. Got a little bit spicy there, though, between Loxa and Gaglio. But thank you guys so much for watching IFWL Racing here from Mount Panorama. Action continues next week from South Africa. Kailami for round number 2. For everyone here at IFWL, I'm Jackson Lambros saying thank you for watching, and so long from Mount Panorama.